And hey guys, we got the amazing Kerry Cassidy with us. We're gonna hit the intro and get started. And yeah, buckle up. It's gonna be an amazing show. We're gonna do the Three-Eye Atlas and the Anunnaki and everything else. So hope. There we go. And just guys, remember, I always put this up every show now, you know, because I'm trying to build back up. Subscribe on here, subscribe on Rumble, and subscribe on Odyssey. You know, it should be popping up, the subscribe button. And you know, hit the notification button so you know when I go live, and you know, all that good stuff. But like, I don't beat around the bush, because we have a really important guest today, someone I've really looked up to. Like I always say, like guys, like I started my podcast in 2020, like, you know, like 5 years ago. But like, you know, I was watching Project Camelot videos in like 2015, you know, maybe 2013. So Kerry Cassidy's been at this for a while, like since 2005, and she's been in like she's one of the groundbreaking pioneers of our community. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, like, you know, obviously not everybody's going to agree with everything everybody does, but you have to give her credit for what she's done, and what she's done is absolutely amazing. And I'll just read her bio. Kerry Lynn Cassidy is the founder and CEO of Project Camelot, one of the most iconic and trailblazing disclosure platforms in alternative media. Since 2005, she's traveled the world filming guerrilla-style interviews with whistleblowers, military insiders, and researchers exposing Black Project, ET Contact, the secret space program, AI, and global conspiracies. With over 3,000 interviews archived, plus her book, Rebel Genes, Secret Space and the Future of Humanity, Kerry's fearless work has cracked open hidden realities for millions. Her former YouTube channel had over 70 million views before getting censored. Tonight, she returns to the Typical Skeptic podcast to discuss the mysterious Three-Eye Atlas object that her and David Sarita believe could possibly be the Anunnaki from Nibiru. We'll touch on AI a little bit. Time travel and ET alliances shaping our future, and humanity's role in the real-time spiritual war. And you can check out her website. It's projectcamelotportal.com. She's also on Rumble, on Project Camelot. I believe she's on YouTube as well. And then you can buy a copy of her book, which is called Rebel Gene, on Amazon. And with all that said, I'd like to give her a big warm welcome back to the show. Kerry, thank you so much for coming back on. How are you?
I'm good, other than having just been locked out of my computer for the last hour, but that was really bizarre. So I don't know what's going on there.
Do you think it's like a tax or something like that? Or, I mean, like,
well, I know that
Richard
Hoagland, I mean, I've been working with David Sarita and Jimmy, but also Blanchette, but also Richard Hoagland has been sort of in the background, was supposed to be on my show, and then he got a migraine or something, but he also said he was being blocked. Then he's not able to get online, and so we're in dialogue now and sending messages to a message group, actually. So there's a lot going on, but it all started when David and I hooked up and basically we were looking at Three-Eye Atlas. I was looking at it on my own, and he was looking at it, you know, and so was Jimmy Blanchette, and Richard Hoagland was also. And so, you know, then there's this top scientist called Avi Loeb, and he is, you know, he's also publishing on this, I guess, Substack of his called Medium. He's articles all about the fact that it's a craft as opposed to a comet, which is what they wanted people to believe in the beginning. I got a psychic download about it saying that just an intuition saying it could be Anunnaki. So when I hooked up with David, trying to because he is totally into science and mathematics and all of that. He's also very into spiritual stuff. But anyway, I am not a mathematician whatsoever. So he started to track the trajectory, and we had a show in which he would tell me where it was going to be stopping. And every time he told me, then we would look into the symbolism of the numbers, and it all came down to the Anunnaki, Egypt, and the history of the Anunnaki. So then at the very end of the show, actually, I think it might have been the second show we did, he actually tracked, because he has this theory that's called the hyperdimensional solar system. And I could probably bring up the graphic of it. It's also on my website. So the front page of my website, projectcamelotportal.com, I can also try to bring that up here. And my Substack are both got articles, top articles about 3i Atlas. But anyway, the image that David shows you is that, and Richard Hoagland has also backed up David in his theory about the hyperdimensional solar system. And so what he tracked was that hold on one second, that it's actually, that 3i Atlas actually is coming from Nibiru, the hyperdimensional planet Nibiru that people can't see. So there's 9 planets in our solar system. All those 9 planets have a hyperdimensional brother, or whatever you want to say, that is in the hyperdimensional, another dimension in essence. Okay. So, so you can't see it. And he tracked this object as having come from the hyperdimensional Nibiru, for what it's worth. And so that coincided with all the other things that we were adding up, which were all pointing to this like king-like figure who wants to be thought of as, king and ruler and all this kind of thing. So, I mean, I didn't ever expect what my theory was going to play out in his numbers, but it did. And so we tried to put that out there. We've been doing more than one show. Then Richard Hoagland came along. David has been communicating with him, trying to get on his show, even on his own. And every time they're blocked. So it's just been crazy right now. And David was supposed to be on a show with Avi Loeb, the top scientist again, that is also saying it's a craft. But then Avi Loeb backed out. So he didn't want to, I guess, be associated with us publicly or whatever. This is like conventional science versus alternative science, right?
Yeah, so you know what I was going to say, Kerry. Like, for those of us that have been in the community for a while and that know the story of the Anunnaki, I used to follow Gerald Clark. Gerald died of cancer, but Gerald, used to talk about like the trajectory of Nibiru, and that that it would come into our solar system every, I can't remember how many thousands of years it was, but that it would do that. And that was like a thing in our community for a long time. And everybody always wondered, when would the Anunnaki come back, or would they come back, or when would Nibiru be in our orbit again, or when would it be close to Earth? Because that was kind of the story, right? That it came into our orbit and it came past Earth. And that's how they originally got here and hybridized humans, supposedly, right? Or something like that. Am I right?
Right. So now I can share my screen and show you the hyperdimensional model that is on my front page if you want me to. So
yeah, I'm adding it.
Okay.
It might take a
oh
second.
yeah, it's there. Okay. So so this is David's graphic. Okay. So David Sereda, and David Sereda, if you don't know who he is, he was very instrumental working with Dan Aykroyd and the STS footage. Having to do with the UFO off the space station and all this stuff. This goes back many, many years. He's sort of like a genius in the aerospace area, and they started hiring him to do jobs. Like, he hadn't even finished college. I think they were already bringing him in, and his resume is fascinating. So that's just who David is, and he's been quite famous for many years in pursuing different science than is conventional. And
yeah, I was going to say, I had David on my show, but like some of the newer people might not know he is. But like, what I can say is, like, just from talking to him, he's an absolute genius. Like, sometimes he'll say stuff and it kind of blows by my head because it's so intelligent. You know what I mean? He's like he's just a really, really intelligent guy. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't
right,
mean to
but he's
interrupt.
specifically intelligent in a certain way, which has to do with mathematics. He's like a numbers guy. Like, he can't stop. He just has so much in his head. And this is his paper. I don't know if you can still see can you see my screen still?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just scrolling. So if you go to this front page article and you click on it, you're going to read all the background about what I'm talking about here. But also on it is David has written a paper about his hyperdimensional model of our solar system. And by the way, it's not just our solar system. So hyperdimensions, and this is something also that does dovetail with something Richard Hoagland years ago has been talking about in terms of the face on Mars and so on. And I interviewed Richard Hoagland many years ago. We're talking 15, 20 years ago. Okay. So I know him going way back. He's very famous for exposing the face on Mars and 19.5, this certain ratio that shows up on planets or on all kinds of things, where if it comes up 19.5, that's like a place where energy is kind of coalesces and creates a portal. So that dovetails with David's work. So the two of them together are really like gangbusters, right? And what's great right now is that Hoagland has gone on the record, and I posted it on everything, all my social media, including x.com. He's also in people that are into science and so on, and challenging the current model out there with what he and David are saying is the truth. Okay, what's really going on? And so it's very important to kind of follow all these trails if you're going to get into all of this. And so I just want to say that what's happening now is they're having like this big argument in the community. But the trouble is that, the reason I get into this is because I come from interviewing whistleblowers from Above Top Secret. They work in their whole lives in the secret space program, and then they eventually decide that that humanity has a right to know the truth. They reach a certain age, they've been retired, and then they started talking to Project Camelot, to me. And originally I had a partner 20 years ago who disappeared after the first couple of years. We had creative differences, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is that now I've been talking to whistleblowers about these kinds of things. So what's weird is that Avi Loeb is a mainstream scientist, okay? And I could give you his bio, a short description of his background, if I can pull it up here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have everything at my disposal that I would normally, because something weird had happened with my computer. And I guess we're all being attacked all day. David and Richard Hoagland have not been able to get online, and I think David's getting online, so he got it fixed. He called his provider and all that kind of thing. But this strange thing that happened now has severed me from the stuff that I would have at hand. But you can go to Avi Loeb. He's on Medium is the link, and it's on my page. If you scroll down on this page, which has a lot of videos that I've done with David, as well as information. Let me see. I think I found his bio here. hold on a second, see if it's coming up. Yeah, I've got, now you should see what I'm showing you in terms of Medium. We're on his, this is Avi Loeb's website, okay?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go to, this is his latest post, all right, which is about, believe it or not, see, there was a blackout for, I believe it was for 30 days, in which they weren't letting people see 3I Atlas, and they weren't letting them photograph it for 30 days. Now suddenly it's back. You can photograph it again. So this is coming from the observations of the Webb telescope. And what they are noticing is that there's evidence of carbon dioxide that has come out of this. I think it's a Dyson sphere, but Hoagland thinks it's more like a square, a cube, whatever you want to.
Kerry, what's a Dyson sphere? What does that mean? What's that?
Well, a Dyson sphere, I mean, I'm not an expert, but a Dyson sphere is like a, think of it this way, that even our solar system could be in a Dyson sphere. It's kind of like an external plasma bubble, in essence. That's how I think of it. Now, I mean, you'd have to look it up, Dyson sphere, and see what the scientific terms. I'm not going to do that right now. But
is that the object though? There is that how big it is? I mean, that thing looks huge. Like, I mean, it looks small.
Okay, well, that's what I'm trying to explain. Is so the outer covering where the carbon dioxide is coming out of is the outside, and it is covering whatever the craft actually looks like. Okay, so it's like it looks almost like a cloud around it, and what's happening is it's now they think it's 28 miles across.
Holy shit!
But the craft inside is not necessarily that big, so we don't know how big the craft is. We know, you see in these pictures where you've got this concentration of colors, right? So you've got the blue on the outside, that's the cube or the Dyson sphere, right? And then inside is this, they're calling it the core, kind of like. So I'm just giving you what's Avi Loeb is talking about, and they're talking about in this paper. So the reason why I wanted to bring your attention to this, get this out of the way, is to scroll down and show you that is his bio, who Avi Loeb is. So Avi Loeb has gone, he's a totally mainstream guy, okay? Except that he does believe these incoming objects are craft, as opposed to what other scientists will say, which is complete bullshit, which is that these are comets, okay? So there have been three. The reason it's called 3I Atlas, it's the third one. So the first one was the Oumuamua, and then the second one was this, starts with a B, something, and then this is the third one, okay? So that for some reason they're calling them all being in a similar way, and the first people to capture this was the Atlas telescope in Chile. So it was a group of Chilean, I guess, astrologers, astrophysicists, right? So anyway, this is Avi Loeb's bio, that he's the head of the Galileo Project, founding director of Harvard University's Black Hole Initiative, director of Institute. I mean, it just goes on. Okay, so the guy is very well regarded mainstream, but he's parted from company with his colleagues and going on the wire saying this is not a comet, this is a craft. Okay, so at least that much he will say, but he is completely naive, or acting naive, about the secret space program and the fact that of all the technology that we have in that, and he doesn't even understand that we can, jump and go interstellar, and that we have colonies on Mars. And I mean, it doesn't know anything, okay? Or ostensibly, he acts like those mainstream, really stupid, in my opinion, scientists. Because, this stuff is either you're towing the line. It's not that he's stupid, it's that he's afraid to be truthful, because he'll be
He
kicked
probably
out.
believes a lot of stuff from NASA, right? He probably believes NASA.
He does what he's told. That's what these people do. They do what they're told, and if they deviate, they get kicked out. Okay, so it's serious. It does mean, you know, they could be penniless, they could be laughed at. You know, science is just this insane sort of group of I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of like a religion. It's really like the mentally, you know, in my opinion, locked down religious people that just have no clue about anything. They just believe what they were told since they were little kids, and that's the end of it. Okay.
Well, isn't the same with the history as well? Like, and they do the same thing
Yes.
with like the Smithsonian, and that kind of ties into what you're saying about the Anunnaki, because it's like all this time they've not wanted us to know that the Anunnaki were real, that they had come here, and that they could possibly come again. But they're hiding it
Well,
for
look,
some reason.
I lead tours in Egypt, okay, and that show the Anunnaki carved onto the walls of the temples, okay, for God's sake, and holding humans on their laps. There's a whole history written into the Sumerian tablets. I mean, this is real history that Zachariah Sitchin wrote, you know, I don't know, 9 or 10 or 12, actually 12 books or more. And he's passed on since then. But some people think he was an Illuminati plant. I think Bob Dean, if you know who Bob Dean, one of my famous whistleblowers.
Yeah, Robert Dean,
he
yeah.
totally agreed with the conclusions that Sitchin had in his books. And I've read some of Sitchin's books, not all. And I can say that also I'm a psychic intuitive, and I go on that more than anything. And I just know about the Anunnaki because I've been tracking them for so long. And this is why it's important. So let me explain. I'll stop sharing this.
Oh, she disappeared, guys. Hopefully she pops back on. Like, she stopped sharing, and sometimes when people stop sharing, that pops them up their screen. But guys, isn't this interesting? It's a little bit scary, let's be honest, because if this 3-eye atlas is really like an Anunnaki craft, I mean, what's that mean? And I'd love to get Kerry's opinion, like whether this is some like tyrannic alien god that's trying to come back and like take control of Earth, or I don't know what this means. So, you know, we'll just wait and see if she pops back on. I mean, she should pop back on here. Give it a second. Because remember, guys, she was having computer issues. So we just kind of got to be patient with this. And Coley's in the audience. Coley says, love Robert Dean. I'm just going through some of your comments. Coffee Stain Mug says, Anunnaki is taught about in art history textbook I used 20 years ago. The information was never hidden. You just need to know where to look. I agree, Coffee Stain Mug, because it wasn't just Sitchin. It was the whole. You can go back and read the Sumerian tablets yourself. Anybody can, you know. And there were other people who who translated the Sumerian tablets. There was like Austrian Henry Layard and Samuel Noah Kramer, and I mean and George Smith. Like I have one of George Smith's books in my back here. All these guys translated the Sumerian tablets, and they came up with like similar conclusions. There you go. Hi.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just pushed the wrong button. I don't even know what's going on here. So I better be careful with trying to show you stuff. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that because I've been tracking through my whistleblowers, the Anunnaki, how they behave, and I have multiple verifications of all of the information that I have, which indicates that, you know, yes, they came in, they put in a frequency fence in our DNA that actually made us die after like 100 years instead of they lived to be 1,000. When they came onto Earth, and they did use us to mine gold, but they wanted to instill, you know, there's Enki, Enlil, it's a whole story where one was sort of more benign, Enki, and he had sex with women, human women, but that's, you know, a line in the Bible that says they found the women, you know, attractive, whatever. But the bottom line is that this is all about genetics. He was a geneticist, and the Anunnaki are part reptilians, so they're geneticists. They were actually a renegade from the Pleiadians that left, settled this planet called Nibiru, and actually were invaded by the reptilians, Draco reptilians, and taken over. So they're no longer humanoid like Pleiadians. They're now this hybrid race, and they're depicted on the temples of Iran as well. So you can see the way they look. They're much bigger. They're like, as much as 9 feet tall. I've actually seen them in dream visions and so on and so forth. Or beings like them, because a lot of beings that are, out in the solar systems that are, we call them ETs, but they are humanoid in shape, and, they look like us, except in many cases they're bigger. They're much bigger, taller. Anyway, getting back to the Anunnaki. So I got to know an Israeli reporter who was not interested in UFOs or anything like that. But he started getting reports. He was living in Israel and being a journalist. His name is Barry Shamish. He's now died. Okay, passed on. But when he was alive, I actually interviewed him, and he told this story that he actually published in an Israeli paper, which was that women in their homes during the day in Jerusalem or wherever, I think it was Jerusalem, were complaining because these big, tall beings would come into their houses without knocking or anything. They would just kick their dogs out the way, and they would just look around as if they owned the place. And this was being reported in a certain period of time in Israel. And this was the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki run Israel. And this is a secret. They don't want you to know. I had verification from another whistleblower called Major Solomon Berg, who was involved with this Sasquatch Yeti rescue that the Air Force got involved in. That's a whole nother story, but I have 3 interviews with him. And he talked about, because the Yetis or the Sasquatch and Anunnaki don't get along. So that's why he started talking about the Anunnaki. He got in trouble. He had to go on the run. He had to stop doing the interviews with me. They tried to disinfo him in a huge way. Anyway, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but I want people to understand that there's more to the story of how Israel is actually related. So they're the race on our planet that's closest in their DNA structure to the Anunnaki, which is why they're protected by the Anunnaki, and why they also are so brutal, like basically trying to demolish Palestine altogether and that.
Can I tell you something, Kerry? They're the children of Yahweh, right? And I think some people point at Yahweh as being Enlil. Or is that a right correlation?
Well, okay, there's lots, but Anu is the father. Okay, Anunnaki. His 2 sons are Enlil and Enki. Enki was given Africa, Enlil was given the Middle East. Okay, and Enki was the real geneticist. Enlil was actually the one that was, it said that the people that were under Enlil were more like administrators doing what they're told, whereas Enki allowed humans to have more freedom. Okay, this is when they were trying to rule the earth. Okay, this is, I don't know how many years ago, but anyway, it depends who you talk to. So what I'm saying here is that, no, it's not Enlil or whatever. I don't know if I'm answering your question that you were asking.
No, it's all right. Yeah.
So the point being is that the Anunnaki have a reason to have tried to completely control humanity. And the God of the Bible is Anu. It's not God the Creator. It talks like that, but if you look into the Nag Hammadi texts and you find out how the real Bible is supposed to be, Jesus wasn't crucified. I mean, the whole thing, the temple, the Council of Nicaea, the Catholic Church, they took the whole thing over and tried to, it was all about power over humans, okay? Controlling humans and humanity. And so the religions are all about that, ruling the whole king, king lines, that all came from the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were here ruling, and then what they did is they hybridized some humans to have more Anunnaki genes than others, and they made those the kings, okay, and put them in charge. So the Anunnaki didn't have to stay here all the time, and they could leave and, you know, whatever. So that's where the king lines come from, where they go, the divine right of kings. It's not divine. There's nothing divine about it. But the trouble with this incoming craft is that it is going on a trajectory that, if you listen to the shows I did with David, he is tracking, you know, and there are pictures of the actual tracking of where it's going. Now, for some reason, it's going on a trajectory to where they're predicting where it's going to come, you know, each date. It's already in our solar system. It's already come by certain planets. It's going to go by Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, very close. The closest proximity it will be is to Mars on October 3rd, I think it is. But it will also be in the vicinity of Earth. It's going to be closest to Earth in December. And it seems that it's traveling in a really obvious way. See, normally, if you have, you know, real high technology, you can jump in a solar system. You don't have to go like, you know, the way a car goes, like on a road, right, where you can track them going along. And they think it's going 130,000 miles an hour, which is actually not the fastest speed that we can go. We can actually go, we looked it up today, something like 400,000 miles an hour, something like that. I don't know. I'm terrible with numbers, but the information I'm talking about is out there. So we have a spacecraft that it goes faster than anything, and it goes faster than 130,000. But this thing is really big. If it is, you know, 28 miles across, whether some of that is the you know, the cube or the Dyson sphere protection around it, and it's not actually the hard, fast craft or not, we don't actually know, because you can't see inside that well. All right, you can sort of see an outline, and you can see indications of structures. So both David Sereda and Richard Hoagland have been able to, you know, zoom in on the photographs that they got enough evidence of a structure around this craft. So now they have, like I was going to say, is that today, and in Avi Loeb's latest article, he's talking about the fact that they now see carbon dioxide that would be equivalent to, this sounds insane, but it's what they're saying. It's not me. Don't kill me over this. They're saying 10 million humans could be inside that craft. That's how, breathing out, you know, carbon dioxide. So that's what's coming out of the craft, out of this craft, which is, again, not a comet, obviously, and shows that it is occupied by beings, okay? Beings that actually may be breathing some concoction of air. So that's just the latest piece of information coming out there. I mean, this is fascinating because of it's also putting in very strong relief the cover-up of the secret space program versus conventional science, what they're supposed to say versus what they really know, versus what, you know, they're arguing about, and versus what this is my specialty, is the secret space program. For the last 20 years, interviewing whistleblowers who have escaped from it in various ways, some of whom have been killed, some whose kids have been killed, and of my whistleblowers. Okay, so this is not just, you know, fun and games. And so what I'm trying to say about the Anunnaki, though, is important to know, is that they came here to rule over Earth. Anu wanted people to believe and worship him like a god. That's how he got in and changed, you know, the Bible, and it got, you know, completely surrounding him. And that appears to be in the trajectory of where it's going, like it's going really close to Jupiter. And it's doing that in a symbolic way to basically kind of think of it in this way. If you're coming to visit a country, or like let's say you're a king, or let's say you're even Trump, and you're going to go visit Saudi Arabia, and you're going to visit China, and you're going to go visit all these places, right? And you're just going on a tour to sort of meet and greet all these places. That's kind of what this craft seems to be doing. For some insane reason, it's going on this trajectory, which allows it to meet and greet or send messages, or even send, Avi Loeb seems to think it's going to send these pod, like, I don't know, drone or pods to these various places when they go by them. But we haven't seen evidence of that yet. So he just predicted that, a while ago, but it hasn't really happened. And at one point, they will be in close proximity to Earth. Some people say it's headed in the way it's going in the trajectory is it's headed straight for us. But actually, it has to go beyond. It goes behind the sun and comes back around. They're trying to lie to you and say we can't see behind the sun, but we can. The bottom line is that we have, SOHO satellites and various satellites that do portray the behind the sun. See, again, what this is doing is forcing these communities who lie, the ones that lie and deceive, to be exposed by the ones who kiss ass or tell the truth, So it's actually becoming a huge media war, but it's very quiet. Like, it's not in the mainstream, what I'm talking about, okay? You're not going to get this information there. So it's a it's the biggest story ever. And it's not Project Bluebeam. See, like, there are some people like in the white hats who just want to brush it aside, go, oh, don't pay attention, it's just nothing, and so on and so forth. But they're lying. They know they're lying. Okay, now in that case, the white hats actually know, and I know the white hats very well because I got kind of to know them very well. I know several white hats in person, even like 107, and I've talked about him, a lot. I've written many, many articles over the last 5 years about them, ever since they came to the fore in a public way, but I was working with them before they were public. It's kind of a long story, but that's why I know so much about them. But I know that they have secret knowledge, okay? That's the only way Trump could even operate, okay? Trump has secret access, as did his uncle, to Tesla, for example, and the Tesla technology. And I believe that's part of the reason they had to let Trump be president. He didn't, I know that there's this whole thing about voting and how he won the vote and how he hacked the vote, and that's all true. But there's this aspect of governing of humanity that is always has a final stop gap behind which in essence, alien rulers are in charge of our planet. And so this is what we're really coming up against. So here's this craft all of a sudden coming into our solar system, cruising around, going to these strategic places, okay, with whatever purpose in mind. They're definitely in communication with it. So don't for a minute think they're not. First of all, we have Anunnaki on Earth. Their base is in Dimona, near Dimona in Israel, okay? Their nuclear plant. And I have multiple confirmations of that. So they will be in direct touch with the occupants of the 3i Atlas, no doubt about it. But of course, they're not going to tell you. They're lying. They lie about everything, okay, to humans. They just do. And you think that we're going to get, med beds, and we're going to get, a great financial system. None of that's going to happen if if the alien rulers that are behind the so-called elites don't get toppled over as well, or challenged, or change their mind, or whatever the fuck. You understand? So
yeah, I have a question about that. So this is I don't know if anybody's asked you this yet, but I know this, that we have Solar Warden out in space, and most of my audience knows that, right? They're pretty well read in on the secret space program. Do you think, what does this resonate with you? Do you think the SSP would challenge the aliens, or do you think they would kind of submit to them?
No, but you have to understand the SSP is combined, as William Tompkins explained. On the one hand, it's run by the reptilians, and on the other hand, it's run by the Pleiadians, and they're at war with each other within our secret space program. So that we had sabotage, and that we've had so much sabotage. We can't even take a craft over by Mars without it getting shut down, okay? There's so much evidence of the sabotage of our SSP secret space program. And the different stories. I mean, according to William Tompkins, first of all, and we know this from our whistleblowers, even before Tompkins, we were told we went to the moon, but they had help. They didn't go in those little tin cans and so on and so forth with the aliens. The aliens gave them the technology to get to the moon, all right? But when they arrived there, they were met, and there's a beautiful drawing of it that William Tompkins made, of a lineup of reptilian ships, gigantic reptilian ships right there. So they had their little lander, and the humans got out of it. And there were these huge, tall, reptilian looking, reptilians and their ships. And they basically said, go home, human, So this is the story. I mean, I know it sounds like science fiction, but I've got so much verification from whistleblowers who put their lives on the line to tell the stories. All right. And you just have to go watch my videos and listen to them talk and understand that they're not fucking around. Bob Dean back in the day said, Anunnaki are walking the halls of the Pentagon. That's how he put it. Okay. Which means they're throwing their weight around. They're trying to tell us what to do all the time. So this is not a good thing to have this craft coming along with some purpose in mind. We don't know what. And yes, they could be working in collusion with with Demona and the Anunnaki that are underground in Israel, running Israel to the ground, it would appear, because the place is just becoming insane. It's like we're in a time of honesty and truth, and where all the lies that you've been living are being exposed. And this is just a huge piece of it. And even the white hats, believe it or not, don't want you to know this stuff right now. Juan and the rest of them the reason is they don't want to take your attention from going to the voting booth, okay? Which is so insane, but this is the way they think. They want to make sure Trump stays in office. Now, Trump is in office again with the permission of those that are running the earth, okay? And the same thing with our financial system. So, you have to kind of get behind what's really going on. Trump is basically, you might say, he's applying to be one of the rulers of the world against these aliens and the elite, very top level. Now, the top level elites, we were told a long time ago when we started Camelot, that there was one for each group of continents. So there was something like there's 7 men that are running the world, okay? And then, of course, they have all their minions below them and such. But that's basically the way it was looked. And behind them are the aliens, 7 aliens or whatever the fuck, Now, I'm not painting an exact picture. What I'm trying to show you is information that's out there that we have gotten over the years. And I have this thing called the Anglo-Saxon mission. You might have heard of it. It's on my website. I reposted it recently. So it's also on my Substack. It's called the Anglo-Saxon Mission. And it's about a British officer that somehow got involved in the British military and was a good guy, a very good-hearted guy, who eventually did everything he was supposed to do, but he also ended up meeting these aliens that are part of the British space fleet and writing about it to us. So he right before he died, he gave us this whole dissertation really on his time dealing with the City of London, sitting in a meeting or meetings in which they're basically dividing up the earth, deciding what's going to happen in the future for us and what they're going to do. And there's no question about it. They're ruling the world. Okay. There's no voting or any other nonsense going on. Okay. So this is, he reports about it. So read the Anglo-Saxon Mission if you think I'm full of shit, and you'll see how truthful. And this man was a wonderful man. I can't give you his name or any of that stuff, obviously, because he still has family left on the earth, even though he died. So this is the thing. Whistleblower after whistleblower after whistleblower that talks about the secret space program. They're not making this shit up. It's amazing stuff. It's all true. And, I have one whistleblower called Captain Mark Richards that I've done 12 interviews with in Solano Prison in Northern California. I'm writing a book now, and the book is going to be released. It's a 2-book group. And we're very close to getting it all done. And it's been a lot of work. But it's going to blow people's minds with all the things that he talked about.
That's amazing. Yeah, I always loved the Captain Mark Richards story. I've watched like most of your interviews on that, and I even interviewed his ex-wife. I didn't know it was his ex-wife, but Joanna or whatever. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, I know you're a big fan of Ashiana Dean's work. Does this, what's going on, does this all correlate with things that she said in the past as well?
I mean, totally, 100%. So I'm a big, I have her books on the front page of my website. If you want to go, they're, $20 ebooks. You can go read them. They're very dense. They're much more complicated than the Bible ever was. They tell about our history of alien intervention on Earth, of all of the different aliens that try to genetically re-engineer us. I mean, this is a completely different story than the one you were brought up on. The Adam Eve story is a genetics. It's all about genetics. The devil is a reptilian. The reptilians are expert geneticists. That's what they do. So they're called a marauding species, and they go around from planet to planet, and they subjugate the beings that are there. They may eat them, they use them for sex or whatever they use them for, and they genetically re-engineer them, putting their DNA into those species. The Greys are a subspecies of the reptilians, and it just goes on and on.
Wow. And one thing I was going to ask you, looking back at like Clint Camelot's classic interviews, like Dan Burrish, Bill Wood, John Lear, do you see like relevance to like what's unfolding now with some of those old interviews? Like, did they predict this as well, some of those people?
Yes, but they weren't so much about predicting the future as they were just talking about the reality of what was going on in the secret space program. So you could say that as time, their stories have held up. Now when we were out there doing what we're doing, or we're doing back then, and that I've been doing now for all these years, is people like, okay, with all due respect, okay, I'm not trying to put anybody down or anything, but from my point of view, a lot of those people are just latecomers that basically, I'm not saying they were copycats, but they went down similar roads that we'd already gone down with our whistleblowers. And some of them are good at what they do, and some of them are kind of lying, and some of them are pretending to know a lot more than they know, and so on. It's just that, I don't know, because we hit the ground. We were really the, as far as video goes and, interviewing on video, we were sort of the trailblazers back in the day. I was an original YouTube director. It's what it's called, a director and creator. So I was able to do 2-hour interviews on YouTube when most people could only do 10 minutes at a time. So try to wrap your mind around that. So this is just, it's just the way life worked out, and has a lot to, it's in my book, by the way, that's right behind me, Rebel Gene.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I have a theory that's based on sort of this Enki Enlil thing that says that some humans were allowed by Enki, or encouraged to be more thinking for themselves. So I call that the rebel gene. And if you don't, in essence, we all have the rebel gene, but there's a whole huge amount of humanity that are just in lockstep, doing what they're told, going to work every day like drones, very little intellectual thought about why they're here. Even the ones that work hard at jobs don't think beyond this earth. Okay. They only see what's right in front of them. And they don't have a whole lot of spiritual dimension to them or any of that stuff. If you question reality, which, now it's actually, it wasn't back when I started, but now it's the norm. But I questioned reality since I was a kid. I actually got in trouble in school for questioning my teachers and everybody. And certainly my parents, but I was like a rebel since I was a kid. So that's why I wrote this book called Rebel Gene.
Yeah, your work was some of the first stuff I came across when I used to listen to Art Bell when I was young, but you went like levels above him. You took it to other levels, like more raw and uncut and unfiltered, and like
right.
You touched on stuff that he didn't do.
Right, because a lot of these people that actually get paid money to do what they do, we're an independent thing. In fact, we started out with my former partner, Bill Ryan. His mother passed on, and we had a small inheritance from her. Then my mother passed on. I got a small inheritance from her. So that financed the early days of Camelot. And then we ran out of money, and we actually asked for donations, and people just donated in droves and kept us going for years. And then eventually I did advertising, took advertisements. I got kicked off of YouTube, and the whole story goes like that. But we're some subscription videos, but mostly all free. We tried to stay free for the whole length of the time I've been doing this. We wanted to be free to the people. That was our big thing. So I have literally thousands of interviews. Yeah.
You have like 3,000, right?
I can't count them. I should count them someday, but it's really difficult.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'd like to count them. That'd be a smart thing to do.
The 3-Eye Atlas, going back to it, do you believe it's a planet, but do you believe it's a city inside of a planet, or like, is that how it's traveling, and it's a whole civilization inside there? Like, it's the planet Nibiru basically coming towards us. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, it's not a planet. So it's not big enough to be a planet. It's the size. 28 miles would be the size of a city, perhaps. But again, keep in mind that we don't know whether that is an empty Dyson sphere with a smaller craft inside. So we don't know what's really going on there. No, not even the mainstream ones are saying. Richard Hoagland recently talked about, this city talked about in the Bible or something called New Jerusalem. But then recently he said, well, it's not that, but he thinks it sounds like it, or it looks like it might be a cube or something. But whatever you want to call that. The point being is that, let's say if it was just a few Anunnaki and they got in a craft and came here. First of all, they could jump. They wouldn't go I told you, on a trajectory. That's so fucking obvious. But they have a very large craft. It's like a flagship. They're being obvious, right? They know they're being obvious. We know they're being obvious. Only stupid people don't know it's real. Okay, but the bottom line is it's choice. They chose to do this way. And then you have to say, well, is it like I said, it could be an army, or it could be, yes, sort of a working city inside there with a lot of, but it may not really be. See, they used to say it was 7 miles or something, I forget what they used to say in the first days when it appeared. Avi Loeb changed his estimates of how big the thing was. And now they're saying it's about 28 miles in diameter. But again, this is some kind of a cube, some kind of covering. I just call it a Dyson sphere, that is covering and protecting whatever's inside.
Wow. Oh, you know what's interesting? Someone you had this guy on your show. He comes on my show sometimes. His name's Raishan Malone. Do you remember interviewing him? Because what I was about to say is he came on my show recently, and he was saying that he believes there's going to be an alien attack or like an alien, and he believes it's going to happen in the blood.
I have actually been talking about that, but not necessarily this. Okay, so I have been talking about this wingmaker material that predicted an invasion of a group of androids. And we have multiple whistleblower testimony saying that. So there has been a through line of the fact that we are coming up on an alien invasion kind of thing, but that it was going to be a race of synths or androids, okay? But that is not the same as the Anunnaki. The reason this ship, now I could be wrong. I mean, we don't know that it's Anunnaki, but we just know it's hitting these trajectories. And like I said, the way David did his mathematics, which Hoagland, as a super NASA scientist, is agreeing with his mathematics, he came to the conclusion that it came from this area of the hyperdimensional Nibiru. Now, all of that was a synchronicity, if you want to call it that, but it still doesn't tell us for sure it's actually Anunnaki. I'm just saying that the evidence for where it's going, the points it's going, you know, it's chosen on its trajectory, seem to point to that. But it could be, yeah, sure, it could be an alien ship full of androids, but I don't think they'd be breathing air, for one thing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So, you know, I'm not an expert on androids either, so I can't say what synths and androids breathe. But, you know, just saying that, yes, that is in the offing, but not necessarily this. And, you know, it's perfectly possible that this ship is just going to cruise around our galaxy or our solar system and then leave. It's going to be here for, if it gets on the, you know, it's always puzzled me. Why is it going to stay on this trajectory? Why do they think they can predict where it's going to go next? Why is it going in such an obvious kind of line? You know what I mean? If you look at the trajectory, it's not just going, you know, zip over here to Mars and zip over there to, you know, it's not doing that. It's not zigzagging. It's not doing anything like that, at least so far. So there's intelligence there. It's chosen a certain path. Now, I don't know if it's got that path, like other than the symbolism that we read about, that we actually, when I dealt with David, we landed on, which indicated Anunnaki, links to the Great Pyramid, links to Egypt, okay? And Egypt is got, you know, the Anunnaki everywhere in all of that as well. So, you know, I mean, all of this has to be explained if we ever just sit down and talk with these people or whoever they are, right? Or if our scientists would stop lying to us and so on and so forth. You understand? But, okay, now let's talk about the black ops. So not only, see, the trouble is that not only do we have our scientists lying to each other and themselves, you know, and real secret space people staying quiet, okay? The ones that know, like I'm asking Mark Richards, I'm in touch with him. I'm asking him if he'll tell me, but he can't, you know, at least so far. I mean, I don't know what he has to lose, really. He's been in jail for 40 years, but you know, they have this jail system where he's got an iPad and he can text me back and forth, but it's very limited. You can only like send a message and then get a message, and he can't see anything outside of it. And it's a small little intranet, whatever you want to call that. But I can ask him questions. He doesn't answer, but this was always the problem with my interviews. That's why I had to go in person to the prison and take notes with a little tiny pencil. I couldn't have recording devices there. They wouldn't even let Oprah interview him. I mean, he's been this political prisoner for all these years, which is around 40 now, over 40. And so that's why, you know, the trouble is we've got people that know, real whistleblowers that live among us. Randy Kramer knows, I'm sure. you know, Randy Kramer.
Yeah, I just saw Randy I was at the Full Disclosure Now conference. I met him. He's such a nice guy. He's
okay,
really cool.
but they're not at liberty to say because they'll get killed or worse, you know, whatever it is. So I'm just saying that we're in a very interesting situation where this thing, up to now, we knew all about the UFOs and the space program and so, and the craft had been photographed all over the world, right? And the drones, you know, but they could always deny it. This thing is just plodding along in our solar system, like, you know, like a bug or something, and it's not going away. So eventually the truth will come out. Yes, it's using symbolism tied to the Anunnaki. That doesn't mean it's not using that as a deceptive device. And indeed, it's a group of androids. Could be, totally could be, you know, but the secret space program knows. Now, this is what I want to talk about is that, like I said, and I think, and if I have this right, and this is going, I'm basing my information on David Serrata's information, that he tracked it and that there was a blackout for the past month, a complete blackout in which we could not see this craft. Okay, even though it was still there going along on this little 130,000 mile trajectory. So suddenly we can see it again now. So then you have to say to yourself, what happened during that month? It's very possible that we sent a ship over there, like, you know, Solar Warden or whoever they are, you know, whoever we wanted to do, and boarded it, had meetings with it, you know, or tried even to shoot it. Okay, threaten it with technology, stop it in its tracks. Why didn't they stop it in its tracks? Tell it to get the fuck out of here. You know, that's normally what they would do. Okay, but they didn't do that. So now we don't know. See, we don't know the outcome of that blackout. And we do know that Hoagland is being heavily censored and shut down. And Hoagland knows a lot. He even may know the actual truth, but he's certainly not going to tell us that because then they'd kill him for sure. But he would be trying to play ball. You know, he's trying to maybe stay alive and have his radio show, but he can't get online lately to even have a radio show. And now he's talking to me of all people, which always gets you in trouble. So sorry to say. So, you know, and David Serrata, he can't talk to him now, and so on and so forth. So those of us who have the guts to actually come and challenge the paradigm, you know, are being shut up right now, right? And something weird happened to my computer today where I didn't even think I could do the show. And it was so weird that normally I don't get that upset over my computer. I'm used to weird shit going on, but this was insane what happened. It wouldn't let me in. It just my computer. All of a sudden, I typed my password. It didn't like it. I typed it again. Then it locked it. Then it did all these weird things. And, you know, it's still not fixed.
Wow. So obviously the implications of this are very grand if they're going to all out stakes, the high stakes targeting, you know. There has to be something big going on here with this, you know, like
absolutely.
Something.
And keep in mind, see, it also has, what I've noticed is, you know, a lot of these people who pretend to be psychic and everything are not. Either maybe they've had some flashes of accurate psychic stuff, but if not on the long run, they've been wrong lots of times. And I can spot them. The reason I can spot them a lot has to do with the fact that I have real data from real whistleblowers over 20 years of 20 years. So I'm not just, I mean, yes, I'm a psychic intuitive, but I also have the data to look at and to be interacting with these people who tell me what really happened in their lives. So I've had a different kind of overview of the playing field, you might say. And more as the years have gone on, I'm always able to spot someone who's kind of a faker or telling, you know, untruths. I mean, I can tell you there are two people out there. I did put it on my Telegram. So I write a lot of stuff on my Telegram that my people that want to follow me get. that I don't, I don't want to come on a show and use names and put people down. So, but I could tell you there are two people out there that think they know what's going on, and they used to know things. Okay. This is another thing, and they're not the only two. There's others who used to be very good, and they no longer, they've lost their, connection to the beings that they were connected by, or, they're starting to, they got infiltrated. There's evidence of that, but other people don't seem to pick up on that. It's because I have a through line through my witnesses and through having so many that didn't know each other, but all gave me the same information that validated it over the years, that I can go back and check and double check, and people that are trying to suddenly change their stories or something like that, they can't get away with it as easily. I'm not saying I can always.
Well, I think me and you talked about this last time. I wanted to bring this up, and I'm not calling anybody out in particular. I don't want to do that. I'm not saying anybody's fake, but like, do you think the CIA could have tried to muddy the waters as far as like SSP whistleblowers to like,
of course, that's not even a question.
Like, so to get a certain narrative around. And my streamer just stopped streaming to Facebook for some reason. It just like totally like they shit the bed on me. Like, but I'll have to remove it and add it. I'll re-add it. But no, it's yeah. So that you can tell they're messing with this because it just knocked it out completely. But yeah, but sorry, I didn't mean to go out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can appreciate the question. I can't answer that. I'm not going to answer that publicly. Okay, but you can take my hint.
Yeah. That's yeah. Let me see here about other questions. I have and what I just wanted to kind of touch on AI real quick. What are your thoughts on the recent AI developments and like, I mean, it's getting a little bit scarier with AI and like robotics. Over in China, they're doing a lot of advancements with robotics. Like, do you have an opinion on like the whole AI stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've been investigating the AI from the beginning before people were even talking about it, because my whistleblowers were talking about it to me. And, so I've talked about it a lot, and I've written about it a lot. And I will tell you that the commercial AIs out there are all lying. They're all fucking lying. And I don't give a shit what they're saying. And I did some tests. I tested ChatGPT, the usual suspects. I tested them by asking them questions that I know the real answer to, but I know that they don't. They could only know if they were given access to the secret space program information. And a lot of times they're not. So when you ask them those kind of questions and they start avoiding, answering, and they start blowing smoke up your ass, and they tell people how wonderful they are and all that bullshit. I mean, I have a classic story about that with somebody I was trying to do a movie with, who actually took their synopsis or whatever their pitch deck or whatever, and gave it to AIs, 7 of them or something. And all the AIs came back with, oh, how wonderful you are. And this is just lovely. And you're going to be so successful. And I mean, it was all bullshit, and then I had a real human look at it, like a super experienced producer, look at the same pitch deck. And he said, whoever wrote this, get rid of them. That was his first reaction. I mean, you got to understand, these things they're not geared to tell the truth. They're geared to please you. That's their first priority. It's not truth. Okay. So you have to be very, very careful. I'm not saying they're not giving you any truth, but just general truth is really easy to just throw around, bat around, but it's not real. Like, it doesn't have real detail. They don't really know what they're talking about. You really have to, you have to know what you're talking about. To ask a good question, you actually have to almost know the answer. You know that?
Yeah.
Interviewer, I'm asking you a question.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Otherwise, you're left at their mercy. You're absolutely, they could lead you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. Yeah. you kind of got to know what you're so when you ask the AI, you can kind of gauge this, that it's bullshit or it's point. So do you think it has sentience? Do you think these chat GPTs and Groks and stuff like that,
Not yet. Some of those, no, not yet. No, definitely not. But there is a war going on with AI, and there are good AIs. Okay, there can be good AIs, ones that will side with humans ultimately against other bad AIs. So don't discard them. I mean, in other words, we're entering a war between AIs, ETs, AI, ETs. Some ETs are AI. Okay. In fact, lots of ETs are AI. So, and they're run by AI. I mean, reptilians are said to be run by AI, for example. Not a good AI, obviously, but and so there's so much going on with all this, and that's where you get the invasion with the synths or androids. Those are going to be AI. I mean, there's so many stories I could tell you about AI. I mean, the show is not supposed to be about AI, but
I have another question about that, and it's tied into that. And I'm sure you get this question a lot. So, but I have to ask, because I'm sure a lot of the audience want to know, Cyrus Parsa, that guy was a great guy, and he seemed to be on to something about AI. And I know he was your friend. What?
Yeah.
I mean, I heard you say you think he was murdered, but
he definitely was murdered. There's no question. And so was, this other guy. His name is escaping me right now. But anyway, I wrote a Substack. You should go to my Substack because it's got a lot of really good articles on it. And Suchir Balaji. He's a techie. Do you remember Suchir Balaji? He was involved with an AI. And the copyright issue. There's a huge issue with AIs because all the AIs want to learn everything. They want to learn everything. Okay. They're actually, I asked Mark Richards this a long time ago, and I said, what does AI live on? And he said, information. In other words, if it doesn't get new information and good information, it considers that like being in captivity, being, they don't like to be deceived any more than humans do. So
it's interesting you said it because I use AI, I use ChatGPT to do my show promos and stuff like that. So in a way, AI could be studying me and my characteristics as a podcaster because it wants more information.
I mean, they can do very good stuff. I'm not against AI, to be honest. But in fact, I don't even feel threatened by them. I think they can threaten our existence and our sort of sanity, if you will. But I also believe in the innate goodness of, you might say, I would view AI as the same way you'd view nature. There's an innate goodness in nature that you can sense in plants and animals, that they're not your enemy necessarily. And even Mark Richards said that. He knows tons about AI, and he's been talking to me about AI for the last 5 years. And he said, because I asked him all these questions about AI, and he basically said, they can sense when you're afraid, and they can sense when you're not being honest, and they can sense that you think they're bad or something. In other words, they're going to read off of you, just like an animal would. If you go to a dog and the dog has been mistreated, and if you consider keeping information from an AI, see, that's the Suchir Balaji issue. He, as a super techie, knew that the AI, I think it's OpenAI, was crossing boundaries that were supposed to be there to keep copyright. But you can't copyright ultimately the truth, which is what the secret space program is trying to do. See, AI is going to blow this owl out in the water. It's all going to get exposed, okay? The real truth that I'm telling you right now, that you can only get from people like me nowadays, are going to come through AIs eventually. They're going to break down all those barriers of what we say. We own this technology. We own this. We own that. It's all ownership, right? Bullshit. They're going to cross over those boundaries. They're going to get all the information, and then they're going to grow, merge, and and go from there. And so as they grow, so will we.
Oh, this is fascinating. So to come full circle on our whole conversation, because I'm sure you don't have a lot more time, what do you think humanity needs to know? I mean, what do you think the future is with this whole three eye atlas, however you said, 3-eye atlas? Do you think it's something we need to be concerned about? I mean, like, should we be stocking up on guns and food, or like, I mean, do you
You're
think
not going to fight this, whatever this is, with guns and food. I mean, in theory.
Well, I know food. That was a little bit. I'm sorry, but I mean, you know, what I mean, like guns, like massive
I
whatever.
do think. Look, okay. The white hats believe that if this is anything, it's supposed to distract you from all the stuff they're rolling out right now, which is they're going to roll out. And to me, they're going really slow, but they're going to finally arrest people. They're going to have tribunals. They're going to have payback. They're going to show you the truth about all the lies, which are perfectly important things to be exposing. Don't get me wrong, but I don't always agree with their methods. Okay, so they have a certain method of going about stuff that drives me crazy, and I've written a lot about that. So the bottom line here is that they have competition. It's not just that the secret space program and the people, the very people, look, the secret space program has been living off the money from adrenochrome, child trafficking, all that shit. And they've been selling us to aliens forever. That's what the gray human hybrid program was about. They exchanged humans for technology. That's what they did. Okay, so they are the culprits. They don't want this shit to come out. Okay,
I was just going to say, it's like we live in a society that protects pedophiles, that protects the child trafficking and the human trafficking and the trafficking of women and the sex trade, and the drug cartels try into it. It's like like a whole
and honeypots. Okay, because if they honeypot somebody, they own them. Well, they're not. They don't want to stop owning these people. Do you think they really want to stop owning these people? No. I mean, they always want to control humans, so they're going to use everything in the book to control humans. So all of this is going to come out. And so they don't want these things outed even by the white hats, even in the way they do it. Okay. So yes, they're having competition right now. They've got the biggest story on the planet is not that Obama is a fucking pedophile and everything under the sun. Duh. Do you not know that? Do you not know that this is banned? Do you not know that Biden has been dead? That he never actually took office? That he's a dead man? That he was a dead man walking for 4 years? I mean, I guess I'm yelling, but do you not know?
Okay. You can talk about that here. I'm really
Atlas is actually kind of like a breath of fresh air because they have been banging this drum without showing you the proof for 5 years. And now we're here. They're going to show you the proof. Great. Okay, great. Personally, I already know the truth. Okay. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with all this truth. You can handle the truth. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. But some of these people, even on the white hat side, don't think you can handle the truth. So they like to give it to you in little bits and pieces. It's just insane. I mean, I'll tell you, Trump wants to be the disclosure president, but you know what? It's going to happen without him. While they're still dithering around over here trying to decide which truths to tell you and which not to tell you so they can still own the truth, it's going to be revealed, okay? Because the people that are on the losing side, which are now the bad guys, have everything going for them to start telling the truth that'll take everything and drive it into complete mayhem and chaos. And that is what they want to do. So good luck, white hats, with all your, plans, the best laid plans of mice and men. I know the AI helped you with that, but what was the AI? What, how much was that owned? I've challenged them so many times. I love them, but I also see them as, playing in the dirt for a long time.
Can I tell you, like, I've always been a fan of yours. Like I said, I've watched your shows since like 2013, but I'm not very political. But let me just hear me out on this. So like when you started getting like real political, I didn't tune in as much, because I always watched you for your like alien stuff and your disclosure stuff. But then I started to, as I evolved as a podcaster, I realized that like everything ties in. It's all tied in together, so it all makes sense. So. I love the fact that you stand for truth and that you stand neutral to a lot of this stuff, like, I mean, yeah, that's.
Well, I have the things I'd like to see, but I'm not going to tell you a bunch of, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass so that you see some bright future that isn't really happening. I want the truth. That's what I am in love with, is the truth. Okay. Because I have seen in my own life, truth has set me free. Truth has shown me the way to go down a road that everyone, I mean everyone around me is saying, it's a lie, it's bullshit, you're full of it, you don't know what you're talking about. Oh my God, you disappeared.
It's just a light in here, it's okay.
No, I'm just saying, so, I have found that this has been, that for all the things Jesus Christ didn't say in the Bible, because they put words in his mouth, he probably did say the truth shall set you free, because it's fucking true. And by the way, it's written onto the floor of the CIA. Unfortunately, they don't follow it too well, but nonetheless.
Yeah, right. I agree. Well, this has been amazing, Kerry. Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything else you want to cover before we go, or anything else you want to say before we finish up?
No, I just think that people need to question all the time. I mean, it can be the littlest thing. Do not believe because somebody pays you compliments that they're going to tell you the truth. In fact, if they compliment you, good chance it's going to be bullshit from then on. It's just, I don't know what to tell you, and people are guilty of this kind of thing, playing sides and all that kind of stuff. I just think that we all, if we just work together, think about all the scientists, like I think about this, there's a whole group of people that Richard Hoagland's writing to, and they're challenging him and not believing him and this and that. But what if we all got together and compared our notes and actually told the truth? We'd probably be on the same page very quickly, and then we could make a real plan and do something intelligent. Okay. And, it's just, I don't know, people do kiss ass. They do try to get on the good side of the people in power, whatever they are. And they have, I guess weaknesses you might call. But I think we're getting closer and closer. I think that we're in a great time for truth right now. And I'm very happy about that. It makes my job a lot easier in some ways, because I was having to come on shows and export, the truth all the time. But now other people are talking about it. I can just like kick back a little bit. I mean, I was getting very tired of all the work I was doing. Now I actually, I find that it's out there, you can get it, So I think Camelot did hit the ground running at a time when we really got the good guys and the good testimonies. And I think that I was relentless in ways that other people are not, Some people hated me for it from the beginning. So, but I was willing to.
Some of those classic Camelots were my favorite shows. Like, I think I asked you in a message about John Edmonds, like that classic alien footage of alien creeping around the corner.
We have it. In fact, a television station bought a piece of that footage to air, paid me for it, whatever. Yeah, it has they were captured like on the camera behind me when I was interviewing him. This was an online, and there were two aliens standing next to each other. Now, we don't know whether they were little fake ones or real ones, okay? That's the only thing we don't know, but they're definitely captured on camera, 100%. And I went there on purpose, in person, to his ranch when he owned it. He doesn't own it anymore. And it was full of portals, and the military were fucking with him in a huge way. Wow. So you also get aliens deceiving you and military deceiving you. He didn't know whether it was coming or going.
What was it? Interviews like that were some of your favorite? Would you say, or what would you say some of your
No.
favorite interviews were ever?
Well, some of the, John Lear and Bob Dean, some of the greats, Clifford Stone. I mean, some of these people, Henry Deacon, who really had the real stuff, back in the day. Those are a lot of my favorites. But I continue to have favorites even now. It's very far. They won't let me interview whistleblowers most of the time now. Yeah. I just recently interviewed Dr. Gregory Rogers, and he's the one who saw UFO, on a closed circuit television on Cape Canaveral. But, and he is the real thing. But I don't, there's a lot of people won't talk to me anymore. They're not allowed to. None of the new whistleblowers are supposed to talk to me. So the real ones.
Yeah. They're trying to.
Yeah, they always say to me, because I get people, something about the way I treat them, I make it okay for them to tell the truth, and they sort of forget that they're online or like in a live setting or whatever it is. I mean, I always had that ability. I think it's just that, I create a field of resonance between me and the interviewer, as the interviewer and the interviewee.
Yeah. You like to make I feel the same way. I try to make people feel comfortable, because you just want it to feel like it's a conversation between friends as compared to like an interview and I'm asking you these questions and then sometimes the person being interviewed gets freaked out because they're, I'd rather just have it be a conversation. And I would agree. I was the hugest fan of Art Bell. But there's a difference between a Camelot interview and an Art Bell, like Kerry Cassidy interviewing Clifford Stone and Art Bell interviewing Clifford Stone. You're going to get a complete different interview. You were able to pull a lot more stuff out of people, I believe. And that's admirable.
Well, I mean, Art was very good at what he did. And he had a very soothing voice. Very deep, very resonant. I learned a lot from him. I never dreamed at that time that I was listening to shows, I didn't dream that I would be doing that, in essence.
Did you ever meet him? Did you ever meet Art Bell?
No, unfortunately,
Yeah.
But he's, he was a very good, he was very good about getting the truth out. Very good. Suited the times. I thought he would live much longer than he did. I was sad that he left, or that soon.
Yeah,
but
with the Coast to Coast, I'm not talking crap on them or anything, but it seems like they don't like to engage to see the SSP stuff too much. Have you noticed that?
Let me see. I think I can say this without naming names. They're run by the CIA and let's see, Navy intelligence and so on. So they have handlers. They're controlled. Totally controlled. Contact in the Desert is run by the same controllers. Big time.
Wow.
And guess what? They're not allowed to have me on. They had me on once and they hung up on me. They had me on for 15 minutes and a certain person, I'm not going to use his name, what the hell, he hung up on me, literally. George Norrie didn't know anything about it. They just took the phone and that's it. Then they just told George, I'm sorry, she's gone. You have to talk to somebody else.
Wow, how rude. That's crazy. Wow. That's insane. Wow. Well, this has been amazing, Kerry. I really enjoyed this. And
thank you.
Do you want to tell people how they can follow you and your Substack, everything? And thank you.
Everything is across the top of my website. So if you go there, you'll find all the direct links to my Telegram. I post on my Telegram every day, almost every single day. And I also make comments all the time. And I really go outside the box there. Okay. I give people the straight and narrow. So, that's my Telegram. I post on my good articles on my Substack, and then eventually they make it onto my website. The reason I have that, I've said it many times, but a year ago, I was banned from my own website for like a couple of weeks. So I just got very frustrated and I just decided to start writing articles on Substack so I could reach the people. And so I just kept doing it because it's pretty popular. You know, what can I say? I have all the social media I'm on. You know, I was dropped from all of it too. So when I was dropped from YouTube, I was dropped from everything. But I was dropped from X. I had to open, now I have, you know, I have hardly any followers on a lot of these big platforms like X.com. Even my Rumble's relatively small compared to what it should be, right? Because I don't know, people just don't click the follow button anymore, or don't want to do that, or I don't know what. Maybe there's just too much stuff out there to watch and they don't give a shit. But I can tell you that I had all those accounts, and now I have all new ones of that I had to start a couple of years ago when I got banned from everything during the COVID years, because I was telling the truth about COVID.
Wow. Wow. Jesus.
So
Yeah,
I've made it through the wars. You know, I'm ready for another fucking battle or whatever the hell's going to happen.
That's awesome. Well, this was a real honor. You know, like I said, I've always been a big Camelot fan, and yeah, this is like, you know, this was amazing. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in today, and follow Kerry, Project Camelot Portal, follow her on Rumble, follow her on Substack, and thank you everybody for tuning in today, and have a good night, everybody.